Here's another debate, Biggie. Now, we got into this during garbage time on Thursday. You were not here. We were playing Match Game, I believe. And it came up. It was something about reading.
Treasure Island?
Yeah. Chris Demm was talking about the first book he read was Treasure Island.
Big boy book.
And I had seen something, and there's debate now. If you listen to an audio book, can you later say, I read the book? Or did you just consume the book? You haven't really read it. It's like and at first I thought, yeah, you've got all the information from the book. But then we had some callers say, no, that doesn't count. It's been split. I've gotten a lot of emails on this, and it's almost 50-50 split. The only thing I would say is, today I'm going to read 10 put up or shut up rock and roll trivia questions to Chris Demm and to this audience and to y'all. Mm-hmm. I've read the question. I'm going to read them from a piece of paper. And if anybody asks, did Chris Demm read the questions today? The answer is going to be no. You know, because you heard them. You took the quiz. You know, Biggie, did you read the questions? No. You know what I'm saying?
That's a really good.
Yeah.
And I'm torn because a movie's different than the book. So, you know, I always say when somebody says, I saw the movie, though, it's like, no.
Yeah.
But it is a reading of the book word for word.
To you.
To you.
But like if Chris Demm, in his Demm report coming up in a moment, reads an article that he found somewhere online, whatever it might be, and later, you know, a listener is asked, did you read that article? The answer is going to be no. But he heard it word for word from Chris Demm.
Well, I mean,
the book's a little different.
My take on this is that when you, like a radio broadcast or stream, whatever this, however you're consuming this program, allegedly through the stream.
Yes.
You know, to me, that's a different, it's a different sort of interaction with the book. When you listen to a book on tape or listen to however they consume them now, I don't know if they do tape. That's just you, and it's just you and one and the story.
That's correct.
You know, and the same way you would read a book. It's just you and the book.
It is the same way you'd read it, but you didn't put your eyes on a piece of paper and read the material.
It's two different senses. I mean, one is your eyes, you're reading it, and one is you're listening to it. So I think if you were in a conversation with someone, they would say, I read that book, and the other person should say, I listened to it.
Yeah, I listened to the book.
It's just like watch, it's like Biggie said about a movie.
But you do
I saw
have
the movie.
But you have the exact same information. It was just read to you. I mean, if a kindergarten teacher reads a book to 30 students, I don't think they can say, I just read that book.
No, they can't.
I think but you would say, I read that in school. I bet you $1,000 you've said that about books.
Probably have.
Dr. Seuss book, we read that in grade school. We read that in kindergarten.
Even though the teacher read it to you. But I don't think, but you really didn't read it.
And some books do read differently. I mean, if it's a Bill Clinton book and he's reading it and it's his book and he's just reading it word for word, and it's more factual. It's nonfiction. Then I think that's one thing, and that reads differently than a fiction book where you come up with the way people look, and you come up with the way people sound, and you come up with. It's just a nonfiction book. If you're reading it's going to read different than a Bill Clinton nonfiction.
Different to me than somebody else.
Absolutely.
I just think,
but you didn't read it. I mean, physically, you did not.
You did not read the paper, the words on the paper.
The verb read, you did not.
Agreed. See? The verb read, you did not.
The verb here, you did.
Blogger Jen, she's a blogger. Okay, so this is an important opinion. She knows this. Blogger Jen, go ahead.
Hey, I'm also a huge reader. I read like 220 books last year. But
my God, that is incredible. I couldn't do that.
I haven't read that many in my life.
No, me neither. 220? I get like one or two a year, usually on vacation, and I'm usually drunk. All right, continue though. Yes.
Well, I have two things to say about the reading the audiobooks. One, blind people, they listen to a book. I would consider that having read the book because they can't read the book. But also, when you do an audiobook, you can multitask, whereas when you read a book, you can't multitask. So you kind of get extra time, I suppose. Like, if you're just reading a book, you're just sitting there reading. You can't do anything else, or you're not paying attention. With an audiobook, you can do chores or, whatever you want to do.
Well, you know what a caller said when we first brought this up was, if you are a person who is illiterate, you can't read the book. But you can have it read.
That was my husband.
Okay, there's your husband. Oh. Okay, but you can have it read too.
Mr. Blogger John.
But you can have it read too. And the blind guy could read it in Braille. He could Braille it.
If it's printed in Braille, right?
Fair enough. Not all are. Thank you, Blogger Jen. Appreciate it. It may be a question that can never be answered. Roy, you're talking about reading a book versus listening to a book. Go ahead.
Well, as you were talking earlier about Bill Clinton reading his book, and there's a lot of authors that read their own books, but there's also a lot of celebrities now that do the reading.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, like when the author reads the book, he's going to put inflections on parts that he thinks that you need to know.
Yes.
Therefore, you're going to get it in his interpretation, not yours.
Yes.
The biggest difference between audiobooks and reading a book is because they've got places they're going to lead you when they read it that you might not have gotten there on your own. Because you know yourself, even when you sober up after reading, that you may see 50 things that the next guy didn't see.
He's right.
It's a very good call.
He's right.
He's right all the way around. The reader may have inflection in places that you wouldn't see it when you read it.
I agree. So I think when you read the book is when you can say, I've read the book.
Johnny Literal.
I'm Johnny Literate. Otherwise,
Johnny Literal.
I'm Johnny Literal too. Okay. I just say you have to have read the material on the page.
Yes.
Ben, you're talking about reading a book. Go ahead.
Yeah, when I read a book, my imagination goes wild, and I'm not really understanding who, what, when, and where, everywhere, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I listen to it, and I do listen quite a bit on them, my imagination is able to be more concerned or concentrated on the story, and I can picture the people, I can picture the place, I can picture everything going on when it's verbalized to me.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, so do you then think that
do you have a preference?
If you listen to the book, do you think you can say, I've read the book?
Oh, I prefer to listen to it than to read it because I can do other things. I can drive, which I do a lot of. So, I prefer to listen to it.
Well, I agreed with all that, but do you think you can say, I've read it? I mean, I don't think you can say I've read it. I think you can say I've listened to it or I've consumed it.
Who says that?
Well,
I do.
I consumed the book at the
book.
beach.
That's what I'll say.
Nonsense.
I consumed the book.
You read it.
No.
It's like your diet. You don't enjoy food.
No.
You just consume it.
That's right. And that's what I would say is I consume. Did you read The Catcher in the Rye? I consumed it. How about that? It's my favorite consumption of all time.
I just ate rye.
My book report. I consumed a book.
Well, it's another thing. If
Spot goes to the farm.
If you listen to a book, if I were a teacher, you can't say I read this book and do a book report on it. I mean,
of course you can.
Then you didn't read it. You didn't read it.
You did. You can. Well, I mean, in your words.
No. If you've got if you're a teacher and you're teaching a group of high school students and one of them listened to the book, I would not consider that reading the book. Would you? I mean, I think a lot more work goes into reading it.
I think it does, but I think you could get away with writing the book report.
Because you have to it takes hours and hours, and if you just sit and listen to it, that's a completely different. Of course, you can write the book report because nobody's going to know. But if you said, "Hey, I listened to this book," I wouldn't count that as reading the book. No way.
I think most people probably listen to books say they read it.
Oh, I agree with you. But if you were a teacher, would you allow somebody, if you say, I'm assigning you to read this A Tale of Two Cities, and you listen to it from beginning to end, would you consider that reading the book?
Yeah.
Oh, I would not.
I mean, it's still that would probably take 8 hours, right, to listen to it?
Right, but to read it, I bet it takes 25 hours. And it's a much more difficult thing. You have to
I'm not sure why is it more difficult?
Because
they're both time consuming.
It's time consuming. More time consuming.
But the reading is more time
consuming.
consuming.
How do you know?
It depends on who's doing the reading. That's
I
true.
guess. I'm a much slower reader.
Yeah, but your wife reads.
She reads really fast. I just think, if you're listening to something, that doesn't take nearly the effort to read. I mean, you got to sit there and read each page. That's you're just consuming the other way.
You almost have to concentrate more into listening if you are, in fact, like Blogger Jen said, multitasking.
Or driving, yeah.
Because you can miss something.
Yeah.
When you're reading you get it.
No, people skip over passages all
right.
the time. You skip over words you don't know.
Daydream.
That's a whole other thing, though.
You fall asleep while you're reading.
I do that.
Hopefully you're not driving.
William, you're talking about reading a book. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, good morning. Excuse me. Sometimes what will happen is the Cliff Notes version of that, well, of course, that's showing my age, but the Cliff Notes version, they will edit out some stuff that they don't feel like is 100% important just to get you the basics of the book and what they feel like is most necessary. So you won't get everything that's in the book based on some of the readings I've listened to on audio. And just as an additional side note, one of the things they found out for kids is if they have problems with comprehension, if they will read the book while the book is being read to them via audio, they will learn it better and learn how to pronounce words and grammar and stuff like that even better.
Interesting.
Both at the same time.
Interesting.
I get that. Yeah, that makes sense for teaching.
Thank you, William. Appreciate it. One more quick call on it. Casey, you're talking about reading a book versus listening to a book. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking off of what that guy said. I'm actually a teacher, and one of the things that they talk about is reading a book's good. Reading a book and listening to it's good, better. Reading a book, listening to it, and then going back over it. You know, every layer of that is comprehension. Now, as a teacher, I would say if a kid came in and said, "I listened to the book and I did this book report," I'm gonna consider that reading it because he's still getting the content of the passage and in its original version. Using Cliff Notes is not that. It's side notes. It's paraphrasing. It's using it as a resource rather than an original version of the text.
Yeah, Cliff Notes.
That's different.
There's summations and abridged versions.
Boy, I couldn't disagree with you all more on that, though. If a kid told me I listen, to me it's like, okay, what if you watch the movie? I mean, if it's very similar.
But it's a different story.
But let's say it's
80, not word for word.
But let's say it's 90% similar. I mean, you still know the story. You still got it. You could still write a report on it. And then you say, I watched the movie about it or the play about it. I just think that's a completely different thing than reading
not many
a book.
Movies like that.
Well,
that are word for word. Maybe some Shakespeare.
You know, The Help was right up. I mean, thank you very much, Casey.
You went through this whole debate for The Help.
I read The Help. I watched The Help. They're almost word for word, and I wouldn't consider watching the movie, reading the book.
Movies don't enter into the conversation.
No, they don't. No.